we understand the dynamics of human behavior and how technology can help and support that. And so we bring that lens along with the hardcore technology lens to any project. And it's really, again, an outgrowth, though, of my personal background. And I think most entrepreneurs, that's the way it is. You bring your own experiences to bear on anything. And the most successful entrepreneurs bring something really unique to it. eHarmony, again, a client of ours, brought this wonderful model of what makes people successful in marriage, and they brought that. That was their uniqueness that they bring to it. So I think a lot of our success has been because of our sort of unique background, unique slant on it. In some ways, a service business gets paid ahead of when you have to deliver it. So it's a little easier than starting a product business. At the same time, there still are some costs, and so it was all self-financed, but the amount of financing was relatively low, and we did a lot to keep costs really low. So first few projects were students working for me, literally out of a lab at Loyola Marymount University. It was not allowed, and subsequently a rule was passed to make it very clear that it was not allowed, and we had to actually grow up then and get a real office and all of that. But so we were completely bootstrapped and scrimping and saving, and the first few offices we had were not great offices. But the people I had were always top-notch and always looking out for the client and always doing a great job. So you can't save on the people, but you can try to save on all the rest of it and try to bootstrap it. And I'm a big believer in rolling up your sleeves and figuring out how to get something to happen based on bootstrapping it first. When I'm looking for people, I look for a really particular kind of person who's got what I call mental horsepower. So they're really bright people, but also have sort of this intangible, this is a person I want to work with. It's almost like when my wife goes to the store, she buys a fruit by picking up the piece of fruit and looking at it and saying, is this something I want to eat? And that's the way she decides. She doesn't know how to test whether it's ripe or not, all that stuff, but she just looks at it and says, and the same thing when you meet somebody, there's often that gut level reaction you have of whether or not this person is going to be a person you're going to want to work with. And that's a huge factor for me because, we're not a huge company. And so the people you're going to be working with, you're going to go to war with them. You need to have somebody you're going to want to be there, work with, and be successful with. So they got to have the technical capability, the brains, but they also have to be somebody you really want to. And anytime you ignore that gut level reaction, it doesn't work out in the end. So, there's been a few times where you kind of have that voice in the back of your head, I'm not sure. It's a bad hire. Okay, it's not the person you want to work with. It's not the person you want to start a company with. If any of that stuff's going on, you kind of need to know to walk away because in the long run it's going to be way more painful. So we're real cautious and careful, and I've actually halted the growth of the business at several points based on I need to find more people. Now I've had a little bit of an unfair advantage because I was a professor for 11 years. I've been very successful at bringing people out of the universities here locally, Caltech, USC, UCLA, and Loyola, and helping them grow up within the organization. And so we've been really good at doing that. And by hiring really bright people who are people you want to work with and helping them sort of grow within the organization, that's been a very successful model. Almost all our business is word of mouth. We do a good job of being pretty visible in the local community especially, and again, I like to find business locally, so people know who we are now, and we have a very good reputation after being so successful across so many different projects. So finding word of mouth opportunities is not that hard, but if there's ever a slow time, it's not easy to go knock on doors, and it's really not successful to knock on doors. So I personally do a lot of networking and speaking and things like that to get the word out about us, and so that people know who we are. But you kind of sometimes sit back and just have to wait for the phone to ring. There's not a lot you can do that's been successful to push it out there. That said, I'm a huge believer in having a wonderful network of people that you can draw upon for, not necessarily for new business, but gee, my client needs help doing this. Who could they use? And so knowing all of the other people that can do all the other pieces of servicing a startup is really important. And then sometimes that will reciprocate in, hey, so-and-so needs this built out. We'll start from the beginning. We'll understand what their vision is. We'll look at their business plan and all of that. And we often, even before we ever get paid for anything, are in saying, oh, have you considered this? Have you considered that? Have you, looked at this market opportunity, et cetera? And it's often kind of funny because a lot of times that's our most valuable input to a client is really early on. And my belief is that they're going to hire us if they get tremendous value at that point. And so I'm not worried about giving that part away. And so we'll have a discussion about it, and because what I need to know is I need to know roughly what is it going to take for us to build it. Because our business is all about us understanding what it is they need built, setting expectations about what it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, and then hitting those expectations. And so as long as we hit the expectations we set at the start, well, the problem is if a client comes in and says, I want another version of Facebook. Well, that can mean a lot of different things. And so anybody who says, sure, I can go build that for you, is not going to do a good job servicing that client. So we have to understand enough about their business to be able to define it out really well, and once we've defined it out, then we'll say, here's how much it's going to cost, and here's how long it's going to take, and we'll work through contracts and all that, and then we'll start building it for them. It's very challenging for clients who often they come to us and they're not super sophisticated about buying services from a company like ours. They don't necessarily know exactly what they want. For us, the key is defining exactly what it is early on in the process, getting them screen mock-ups so it looks just like what the website's going to look like. Because you really often don't get the feedback you want about what they're really going for until they see it sort of, there ready to use. And so we create those mock-ups early, and we try to get as much feedback as we can early and get them to tell us about all the changes that they want early on. And we push them really hard to tell us all of that because it's challenging if they try to give you changes late in the game. And so, again, we want to understand as early in the process exactly what their expectations are. And so we work really hard to get them a picture of what it's really going to be and make sure that they really understand what it is we're going to deliver. And a lot of it is us knowing how to ask the right questions to figure out what it is that they want to do.